recently somebody posted on Reddit and asking how to achieve this effect. Now, there are some plugins and things for After Effects which will do this. One's which called Loop Flow, which is very good and works very well. However, there is a way to do this with flow maps. And flow maps are a thing which are used a lot in video games and 3D design. And they're essentially a red and green image which tells the program direction to push the pixels in. And we can do this in After Effects using a displacement map. Now, the way displacement maps work are they take a guide layer and they use the pixel values of that layer to move the pixels of another layer. So let's just quickly go over the basics of displacement maps. So with displacement maps, you would use something like a gradient like this. And you would take an image, something like this, and you apply your displacement map to the image. You specify the map, in this case, the gray map. And you can then adjust the horizontal and the vertical displacement. I'm going to change this to stretch map to fit because they're not quite the same size. So now when I do this, you see the gray levels are pushing the pixels left and right or up and down depending on which one I choose. Let's just focus on left and right for the time being. Now, we've got black, and we've got white, and we've got gray. If we apply a posterize effect to this, and just set it to 3 levels, so black, gray, white, and then we go to our layer, and we make sure this is set to effects and masks, we can see what happens is the white pushes it this way, the black pushes it that way. And essentially what it's doing is it's taking the values of the black and the white, and if we think of them as gray being 0, black being 1, white being -1, it's multiplying this value here by that number and moving the pixels accordingly. Pretty simple. Now, the interesting thing is the displacement, most people seem to use just grayscale images for displacement maps, which is fine, but you're sort of missing out a little bit on the full functionality. Because as you'll see, when you apply a displacement map, the default settings are red and green. Red for horizontal or X and green for vertical Y. So if I put this back to 0, if we look at a red-green map like this, which is what I've done is I've got 2 gradients, red to no red, green, no green. And now they're blended together with a additive blend mode, such as lighten or screen. So we get this mixture. So we've got fully red here, fully green here, mixed and mixtures of the two in various places, right? Now, what happens when we apply this to our layer? So let's choose our red and green map. And yeah, let's keep that all the same. And now when I push these, the red is affecting this and the green is affecting this. So only the red only affects the horizontal, green only affects the vertical. Now, if I tie these values to a slider, I find that a bit easier because I want to kind of keep them the same. So I'm going to tie them to a slider, which is pretty straightforward expressions. Just pick them up. Okay, and so now I can control them simultaneously. And what you see is happening is the pixels are moving based on this underlying image. And it's a little bit confusing with the gradients. But if we take our gradient and we apply another posterize again to it, we set it to levels 3 just to keep it simple. So we've got 9 values here of color, various combinations, fully red, fully green, mixtures of the two. We go back to our layer, make sure this is on effects and masks. We adjust our slider. We can see what's happening is we're getting directional movement based on the color values. So a good way to, there's a handy little guide, which you can find if you Google flow map or something along those lines on the internet. And you'll see we've got the X with the red, the Y with green, and then these directions: north, south, east, west, northwest, northeast, southeast, southwest. And so what can you do with this? Well, here's a use case example. So a while ago, I had a client who had this image here. And they had this image created using some sort of procedural generation to create this really nice sort of flowing, fluid-like image. And now they wanted it to move. They wanted it to flow. And it was too expensive to get the company who originally created these images to simulate that. So they asked if I could figure out a way to do it. And so what I did is I created a flow map. And so this is a very simple red and green image telling After Effects how to push the pixels around. And then you apply displacement to it. So if I play it, you can see it's pushing the pixels around. We've got pixels flowing this way, pixels flowing that way, pixels flowing up, all around. So how do you create a flow map? Well, that is a little bit more complicated, because to create a flow map, you need to be able to draw in such a way so that when you move your pen or mouse in a particular direction, the color of the line changes. Now, Photoshop does not allow you to do this. However, you can do this in Krita, which is an open source painting software. I haven't used it very much, but I've used it to do this. So let's take a look at how to do this. So I've got this image of this quad bike on some dunes with lots of nice sand. So what we need to do is we first of all need to create a flow map for this. So let's take our image and hop over to Krita and create a flow map. So here I am in Krita. It's very similar to Photoshop. You've got tools and layers and also something like that. Now I haven't used it that much, so I don't know that much about it, but I do know how to create a flow map in it. So what you need to do is you need to bring your image, you need to create a new layer to paint on, and then you need to go up the brushes here. And the brush editor is quite nice because you can, you can check your brushes. There's a little scratch pad here that you can draw on to check your brushes. You need to go to the engine and you need to find the tangent normal engine. And there might be some presets here, but take one, have a look. This isn't exactly what we want. This is just one color. So you need to adjust it slightly. And what you need to do is you can set up the shape and the flow and all this other stuff. But the important part is you need to go to tangent tilt. And you need to make sure rather than tilt, it's on direction. And then for After Effects, I've found the best settings are to have red as +X and green as -Y. And then you'll see when we draw on here, we start to get these red and green strokes. So you go up, you get green, you go down, you get red. Okay, so you can ignore the blue, you can ignore the Z. And then we go, let me just close this. And then we just need to start drawing where we want our flow to go. So you just start drawing up and maybe some little curls over. Would be nice on the edges, and just draw. You don't need to be too precise. Okay. And then when you're happy with your image, you need to save it out. So maybe turn off the background layer, save it out as a PNG. Those settings should be fine. Okay. And then we're done in Krita. So let's hop back to After Effects. Now let's bring it out. So we've got our flow map. So let's bring our flow map in. Here it is. We'll just turn it visibility off. Let's apply a displacement map to our image. And we want to select our flow map. We want to, it's on center map should be fine because we based it on this exact image. So it should be exactly the same size. Let's add a slider to control both values at the same time. So we want to control the horizontal and the vertical. And now if we adjust our slider, our flow map is pushing the pixels based on colors that we set. So we set a keyframe. Let's maybe go -100. And we'll go to the end and set it at 50, say. And then we're kind of getting nice smoke. There is an issue where we've got these hard edges. Now that's pretty easy. You could spend longer drawing your flow map. Might be a good idea. Or you could take your flow map that you've done, try it, apply it, and take the flow map that you've done, apply a fast blur to it, make sure that you have effects and masks on the displacement map set, and then that will soften those edges. And then there you go. The other thing you'll probably want to do is you'll notice that this is warping the whole image, including the quad bike. So what you probably want to do is, rather than applying it just to this flat image, is you probably want to take these settings and you want to isolate your background and your rider in Photoshop, say, and then you want to apply those settings just to the background. And then you'll have it just on the dust.